So I'm now going to try and resolve this by taking 8 off both sides. 6.5 take away 8. Well, 6 take away 8 is -2, and 7 take away 8 is -1, so it's -1.5. Or you may prefer -1.5. So y then is when I divide that by 3, which will give me -1/2 or -0.5. Substitution complete. A check now. So I'm going to check in 1, because that's the other easiest one. So 3x is 3 times 2. Subtract 2 times -1/2. 3 times 2 is 6. -2 times -1/2 is +1. Success. So, we've solved our first difficult question there. Now let's move on and tackle another one. If at any point you wish to try it yourselves, just pause the video and give it a go. So here we go. Fractions. Possibly negative numbers as well, we can't tell. But let's make a plan down the side. I'm going to get the x's to match. And I'm going to do that at 4x. I'm then going to do a subtract. I'm then going to solve it. I'm then going to substitute, and I'm then going to check. So, label my equations. Number 1 times 4 gives me 4x here. And it gives me 4y. And now the tricky bit. 4 times 29 over 20. Which is 4 times 1 9/20. Not that that helps actually. So 29 times 4, 36. I'll tell you what, that's going to take too long. 4 over 1. Why have I done that? I've cross-cancelled there. So 1 times 29 and 1 times 5. So it's 29 over 5. So what you might see here, some of you, is that when you divide the denominator by 4, you make the fraction 4 times as big. So you can either, that would be 4 times as big, because you've made the numerator 4 times as big and kept the denominator the same, or this would be 4 times as big, where you've kept the numerator the same and you've shrunk the denominator by a factor of 4. And it's because this simplifies down to that. Okay, little extra bonus there, but that's why this question is tricky. So, label that 3. We've got 4x in 2 equations now, which we're going to focus on. It's a subtract, so it's this, subtract this, because that's got larger numbers. 4 subtract 4 is nothing. Five subtract 4 will give me y. 8 subtract this. I'm going to have to do some side work here again. So 29 over 5. So every 5 bits makes a whole one. So it's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Can't get to 30, so it's 5 and 4/5. So that is equal to 5 and 4/5. 8 take away 5 and 4/5. That's not the answer, that's the sum. So 8 take away 5 and 4/5. So 8 take away 5 will give me 3 take away, apologies there, 4/5. It gives me 3, because 8 take away 5, and now I've got to take off the 4/5. You can see from my little error there that everybody will make mistakes on these difficult multi-step questions. So don't worry when you do. So that means cutting one of my whole ones up to take 4/5 out of it. So y is 2 and 1/5. For those of you who still try and do maths in your head, don't. You can see here we had several complicated sums. Multiplying this by 4 was tricky. Doing the subtraction proved tricky, and even I went wrong. And I've done hundreds of these. And now we've still got a tricky answer to deal with. But we have matched the x's and done the subtract. So now we're going to substitute. Now, equation 1 looks the smallest, so I'm going to substitute in equation 1, even though it's got a fraction. So that's x plus y equals 29 over 20. So that's x plus 2 and 1/5 equals 29 over 20. I need to convert this now into 20ths. So that's multiplying both parts of the fraction by 4. I now need to convert it into an improper, so it's easy to do the subtraction here. So that's 44 over 20. Each whole one is 20 bits, so that's 20, 40, 4. So x is right, 29 take away 44. So it's minus 15 over 20. Well, that's minus 3/4. Now this has been fiddly. Let's carry on. We've now substituted. So let's check. And we'll have to check in number 2. So 2 is 4x plus 5y equals 8. So stay with me here as we wrap this up. That's 4 times minus 3/4 plus 5 times 2 and 1/5. So over here, 4 over 1 times minus 3/4. So the 4's cancel out. So it's 1 times minus 3, which is minus 3. and 1 times 1, which is 1. So it's just minus 3. 5 times 2 and 1/5. That's 5 over 1 times 11 over 5. So the 5's cancel. 1 times 11 is 11. 1 times 1 is 1, so that's just 11. And look at where we've got to. This sum is true. Now you may wish to pause that and go through it again. All we did was the same steps as before, except we had a horrible fraction. We had a horrible subtract after our horrible multiply. We then had a difficult substitution where we had to convert fractions again and had a negative number. We then had to multiply fractions. Just take your time and you can do it. Now, there's only one more part to this topic, which we'll look at now. And this is a clever little one. Actually, we'll do worded questions in part 7 at some point. Hopefully you've paused it on the previous section or gone back if you need to, because that was tricky. This one might look a lot easier. Oh great, y matches. Straight away we can do a subtract. 5x over 3x, so we'll do 2, take away 1. 5 take away 3 is 2x. That disappears. Oh, that disappears. So what's x worth? Nothing. So if this is worth nothing here, what must y be worth? That's right. Sometimes you have to trust yourself, and these last two examples are classic cases. Here it looked really simple and it gave you a funny answer, but it's a true funny answer. In the previous one, well, it took us a whole sheet of A4, so it should be a page in your book if you use half pages. Don't be afraid of those, just practice, 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 and then we'll tackle worded questions shortly.